So our group was responsible for pages 60 through 65. So what is the main idea of the excerpt? Elijah?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So, the main idea of the excerpt was the establishment of a specific character. His name's Asagai, and this is the first instance he is shown in the book, or in the play, and he is introduced by Benethia, and then he's later introduced to the character, Mama.
So I'm gonna add on to what Elijah said. So basically what's happening during this excerpt is Asagai and Benita are discussing their cultures with each other, and Benita's trying to see if she connects with Asagai's culture.
So adding on to what you guys said, I think that this scene is like a really strong section of the play because it introduces Asagai and how he's African and his different level of Africans and African Americans and how they see differences on the same platform because they're both in America, and this is the first introduction of Asagai, as you guys said. So this is kind of the start of Asagai and Benita's relationship, as well as Asagai's first impression of Mama and vice versa. So describe the way the scene affects the rest of the play. Well, I think that the scene really affects the rest of the play because it's kind of the first introduction of the cultural aspect that goes into A Raisin in the Sun, and it goes over the difference between Africans and African Americans and how Africans felt about African Americans and vice versa when they talk about like the mutilation of Benita's hair and how Asagai isn't really used to that. He kind of laughs at her, and Benita feels like he's making fun of her because that's just not culturally the same that Asagai is used to. Seriously?
Wait, so I'm gonna add on to what you said.
Okay.
So what was the question again?
How does the scene affect the rest of the play?
Yeah, I was gonna add on to that. So this whole scene is just based on culture. It's all based on culture, and I guess Benita feels really out of place in her family because they all see the world differently, and she doesn't. She sees it in a different way, and she wants to see if she relates to how Asagai sees everything.
I have a different sort of like an opposing opinion on this whole scene, and I feel like this whole scene was sort of like just the part of like a side story of the actual play, because it's the story of Benethia and Asagai, which doesn't really, I feel like doesn't really reflect the main story of A Raisin in the Sun.
Okay. Describe the relationship between the characters in the excerpt. So I think that Asagai and Benita, this is kind of one of the first actual times when they've connected, which is also why this is a really important scene in the play. And Asagai and Mama, this is the first time that they've met, so you can tell that their relationship is going to be kind of, I wouldn't say rocky, but a lot of understanding is to be done because if you see on page 64, she talks about how I would love to hear all about your country. So it's not that Mama is insensitive, but she's just not as informed and knowledged on the difference between African Americans and Africans. And then Benita and Mama do have a strong relationship, so the acceptance of Asagai is really important in Benita's eyes from Mama.
Going off from what Grace said, Mama does say that she does say, I think it's so sad that I think it is so sad that the way our American Negroes don't know nothing about Africa except Tarzan and all that shows this sort of like sort of like what's it called? No knowledge of like African culture, like actual African culture.
Okay. Rizlan?
So, I'm gonna talk about Asagai and Benitha's relationship with each other. So, they met at school, and what Benitha said to Asagai, I'm getting this from page 62 of the book. She said, "Mr. Asagai, I want very much to talk with you about Africa. You see, Mr. Asagai, I'm looking for my identity." So basically, she wants to see if she's African or not, because she really thinks that she's not African American. She really thinks that she's from where Asagai is from.
Okay, so how does this excerpt create a stronger character? I think that the characters are really kind of exposed in this scene because it shows Mama's knowledge on Africans, and it shows Asagai's intelligence on the subject, and it also shows Benitha's kind of unawareness on things like mutilated hair, and they go into talking about how women talk about being liberated, and that kind of shines light on both Benitha and Asagai's perspectives and intelligence. I think that the characters are really strengthened here because you kind of see the question and response of how Asagai and Benitha are able to react and respond to things like when Asagai talked about Benitha's hair being mutilated. It showed the strong character within Benitha when she kind of tries to defend herself. Okay.
So how does this make the character? Okay, so this is the introduction of Asagai, and already you can see that he's like a very sort of honest and strong character. He's very straightforward with what he wants and what he wants to say, and like can be seen from where he talks about how he has like an understanding of like the general American girl, saying that it's just that every American girl I have known has said to me, white, black, and this, you're all the same in the same speech too.
So, I basically had the same answer as Grace. I really just didn't know how to answer it, but she basically explained everything that I wanted to say.
I feel like we can just end it off there.
Okay.
It's like